LL21C presents Lady Liberty of the 21st Century. For over a century, the Statue of Liberty has brought great joy, hope, and inspiration. An object of the seemingly simple idea of liberty. Liberty enlightening the world has stood frozen. But to keep moving forward, it is time for a revamp. To jump off the pedestal and enter into the 21st century. Much more comfortable. I can no longer stand idle. Jumped off my pedestal. Use my tablet for good. The whole world at our fingertips. And this, a microphone. Go ask some people about liberty. What does liberty mean to you? Armed with the tools and a voice, she's ready to find out. Let us enter the Liberty Zone. Welcome, viewers, to the Liberty Zone. My name is Keelin S Clark, aka Lady Liberty of the 21st Century, and I have a very special guest with me, my friend Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I am great, Keelin. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. I brought you on the show today for a couple reasons. First of all, we are in a transformational leadership program together, and I love having you as my buddy. It is magical. And I want to talk about your life as an astrologist, I guess.
Yes, the word is astrologer, but
yeah.
it's a bit more complicated. We'll get into that.
Great. Awesome. And, you know, I always want my speakers to start from their origin story, because a lot of times what we are in this moment is not what we've always been. So I'd love to talk just really quickly, three main points of, you know, what your past has been, which is very, very colorful, up until this moment that has led you to becoming an astrologer.
Yes, absolutely. So I am originally from Bulgaria, and I was born and raised on the other side of the Iron Curtain, which last year completed, you know, we had 20 years since the fall of the Iron Curtain, which was a huge liberation movement for the world in the 20th century, a huge Lady Liberty moment. And I remember when that happened, my father was in front of the TV and they were streaming from East Germany, and everybody was on the Berlin Wall dancing. And I couldn't understand the impact of that moment until later on in my life, because our lives completely changed. We were living a very comfortable existence where everybody had very little, and then things went upside down and we had hyperinflation, we had breadlines, we had a lot of turmoil. My father also ended up dying in a car accident, which kind of formed my teenage years as being these very transformational years. I had the opportunity to come to the US. So that was my ticket to my freedom, coming to the United States, getting a scholarship. And I loved it here. The world opened up to me. I could travel. I could learn so much. I love learning. And I ended up working eventually in the technology world in Silicon Valley. I was building teams and building products, both for consumer companies. Like I was on the first product team for Farmville, if you remember those lonely cows that were spamming Facebook circa 2009 to 2010. That was me, and that was our team. And then I built products for some other consumer companies, but also enterprise companies. And one of the consumer companies I worked for, which is very relevant to your project, which was change.org. So we have a lot of petitions, and we would look at where movements were created in the world, where people were driving forward change. So that was amazing to experience. And for the last couple of years, I've really been building my own business as a coach, integrating a lot of modalities that I've learned over the years, including astrology. We'll talk about that in a second. And what's really important for me is that, you know, since I've felt my own freedom from the 9 to 5, from the corporate world, I've been able to really explore, and I started mountaineering, and I really went nuts about it. Started climbing mountains, and most of 2018 was spent climbing mountains, and 2019 as well, which culminated in me climbing the tallest mountain in North America, which is a very serious expedition. It's considered as serious, if not more serious than Everest. That was Denali. So that happened in June of 2019. And I'm
Congratulations.
still climbing with a local club here, a local mountaineering club here in the Pacific Northwest. And I have my sights set on a few more mountains this coming year.
Awesome. So, it's very poetic that you love climbing mountains, because I see that as a way that you can get closer to the stars, right? Like you're actually literally like climbing up so that you can touch the sky. So let's talk about your journey into astrology.
Yeah. So this was very interesting because for a lot of my life, I have been compartmentalizing myself. I was always the type of person who was really good at being the good girl. I was the best employee, an amazing employee. I did what was right. I was the prototypical MBA person in an executive role, and I didn't deviate from that until I started just on my own exploring avenues of freedom from
What
the oppression that I was experiencing. I'm sorry.
what was your highest level in the corporate world, just to get people
Yeah, of
like,
course. I was VP of product for a company that was acquired by LinkedIn. So I was part of executive teams and in startups in Silicon Valley. Mhm.
that's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, because when we shift into coaching and following our actual destiny path, a lot of times I think that we don't realize the past. I was an account manager before, and now I'm educator, entertainer, empowerment coach. And like all that structure, when people still in corporate, they're like, well, how could she just leave that job and go be an astrologer? Like what happened?
What happened was a wake-up call. My partner at the time was working at Facebook, and I was working at a startup, building a couple of teams actually. And he was hospitalized. I literally turned around on the Caltrain going from Palo Alto to San Francisco. I turned around because his nurse called, and I described the symptoms, and she said, take him to the emergency room right away. And I did. And in the emergency room, I was pinged all the time on my phone by my boss at the time, the VP of technology, or the person overseeing all of the technology in the company. And he really wanted to talk to me about restructuring one of my teams. And I explained that we are the ER, they found something serious. It was blood clots in the lungs. And I explained that, this is a very serious moment, but I was being told that, no, we should talk about this ASAP. And that's when I remember I turned around and I fired off a text to our HR person, and I said, I'm going to quit right now if you don't stop this. And it was really a moment when I realized that it's not worth it. It's not worth it. We were, at the time we had done well, both of us. I had been parts of companies that had IPO'd. I had been on executive teams of companies that had been acquired. So there was no financial reason for us to stay in the golden shackles anymore. And we just decided to go and hike. My partner's from New Zealand. So when we went to New Zealand, we started hiking. We hiked all around the beautiful country. And then we started exploring mountaineering, and we got ourselves to climbing mountains. So it was all a little yellow brick road journey that was completely unexpected, out of left field. But I'll tell you, Keelin, when I came back, it had been about a year since I left the company. And I was being pinged by a lot of the tech companies. And I remember going to one of the big kind of shiny names to their headquarters. And I was sitting there really looking for my person I was going to have an interview with. And I remember just feeling this energy coming at me that was very sad and oppressive, because I could see everybody either staring at their phones, staring straight ahead of them. And I remember thinking, wow, this is what the matrix looks from the outside in. This is what I was part of, and I wasn't even seeing how it looked. And then I had that chilling realization. I remember it very well. And I said, oh, shoot, that's the only way I know how to make money. And so if I want to make money that way on autopilot, automatic, I got to get plugged back in. It still was a leap of faith that was unintentional in the beginning, but within a year, I had found that I had leapt too far away for me to go back comfortably. So that's how it happened.
Wow. So we only have about 10 minutes left,
Yeah.
and I really want to talk about your work in astrology, and then I want to talk about our adventure we're going to take at the
Mm-hmm.
end, which I'm so excited
Yeah.
about.
Absolutely. So I discovered astrology as a way for me to find my own way in life, to find perspective. And it was very
What I've
interesting to
always
me.
used it as well. I when I was younger, I would look at like personality and like what, I'd like find a guy that I liked. He's like, what's his sign? And I have a book. It's like a pretty, I've got this book. Like,
Yeah. Oh, yes. Of course, that's one of the classics. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And I would just like obsess over it. And people are like, oh, it's not me. It's not real. And I'm like, there's a little bit of truth. And there's
Yeah.
possibly not some, right? But you dig a lot deeper than just like horoscopes.
Yeah, of course. So the sun signs, the things that you read about in the magazines or online columns, this is what's called sun sign astrology. And really, when you were born, normally the chart represents all of the planets in the solar system and what signs they were in. So you don't just have a sun sign, you have a moon sign. And you have this thing called a rising sign, which is
Capricorn rising, moon Cancer. Right here.
amazing. Well, I'm a double Capricorn with Aries rising, so.
Ooh, girl. Happy birthday.
So there's a lot more planets that are, I wouldn't say influencing, because there's no causal, the way that I see it, there's no causal relationship. We're not puppets to the stars. And my journey with astrology really was very inspired because when I was young, I had a friend of my mom's who was an astronomer, worked at the Academy of Sciences back in Bulgaria, who was also an astrologer. And she would always guide me in a very positive way. She would never scare me. She would never be deterministic like a lot of astrologers are, unfortunately. And she would always give me, oh, wow, this thing is coming up for you. There's going to be this new opportunity or this new amazing thing over this part of your life, which is amazing. Or if I was going to experience a more difficult time, she would encourage me. She would say, look, the next couple of years are about working hard, applying yourself, getting to a place in your life where like you're building the foundation now, and it's going to serve you later. So I always found this to be amazing guidance. So when I started reading more in depth about astrology, I found my teacher, who was Stephen Forrest, and he's the founder of evolutionary astrology, which is a branch of astrology that is psychological in nature. In fact, it traces its origin back to Carl Jung, and my teacher has a direct trace of lineage to Carl Jung. He studied with one of Carl Jung's apprentices. One thing that is not known widely was Carl Jung, as well as other scientists in the past, have been closeted astrologers. In fact, Carl Jung would draw a chart for every client that he has, and all the archetypes that came out of that work and that gave rise to the Myers-Briggs personality system all traced directly back to astrology. So I started really becoming a closeted astrologer myself. I would go to these apprenticeship meetings with my teacher, and I would lie to my workmates. I would say I'm going to a yoga retreat, or I'm going to some place, that was more acceptable, because they knew my interest in yoga. I'm also a yoga teacher.
So there was an embarrassment around what you were studying. There was a judgment.
Of course there was. And a lot of the people I worked with were very left-brained, and some of them, not knowing I was an astrologer, had openly dissed astrology as prejudice.
So interesting, because we use it in marketing all the time now, like the companies that they're working in, and a lot of them probably were working under those psychological assessments that are taken from astrology.
Yeah, absolutely. And so long story short, I ended up apprenticing with Stephen Forrest, who is the founder of this School of Astrology. And what makes it different is that we really don't look at things in black and white. Unlike some other branches of astrology, the goal is not to say what will happen, because that takes away the aspect of the free will and the choice that we always are in possession of. So think of it this way: if Jesus Christ was born at the same time as a cockroach in the same space, those two beings will have the same exact birth chart, technically, but how they will express it in this world will be a function of their consciousness, the choices available to them, their free will,
their ancestral lineage, you know, there's all kinds of things woven in, right?
Exactly. And so if you think about it, like I don't have a prop for it, but if you think about the chart is two-dimensional. If you see it, it will like look like a circle, like a mandala, and there will be these glyphs on it, which represent the planets and the signs. But if you look at it from the side, it really is more like a spiral roll that represents the elevation of consciousness that we are here to accomplish. So we come with these patterns, but they don't box you in on any level of consciousness. You can express the same symbol in many different octaves. And so as we are in this world, we are looking to, through our choices, through the information that we get, through the life that we live, the idea is that we express the same symbol or the same energy patterns in a higher, more elevated way, so that we evolve in this lifetime.
And I love that, because I just want to take a minute, because I think a lot of people have a fear or a judgment around astrology because they don't want to be labeled and they don't want to be put in a box, right? So I think making the distinction between the cockroach and the Jesus Christ, like being born at the same time, they still are going to lead different lives. So even just because you're a Capricorn doesn't mean, you know, X, Y, and Z, and that's it. Like what you're describing, and I love the spiral image, which I've never seen before, is that it's a world of possibility. It's a universe of possibility. Not even a world.
Yeah. And that's what makes the job of an astrologer so important and so difficult, because as translators of symbolic meanings, what we do is we need to provide some concrete guidance to a person with respect to here's what's possible, here's what's available to you, and not box them into a specific way that the energy may express, because the spectrum of expressions of a certain energy or a pattern, even when something is activated in your chart through the movement of planets, is not like there's not one or two things. Unfortunately, a lot of astrologers say, well, the law of averages states that anytime somebody experiences X, they're going to get depressed, or if they have Saturn in the house of partnerships, that means they're not going to find love in this lifetime. I call bullshit on that. That is so simplistic, and that actually is dangerous, because then the person starts expecting that, and they themselves narrow down the field of possibility and lock into this one puny tiny option that can be an expression of so much more.
And what we do in our transformational work, where when we actually work in hardcore leadership, but there's all kinds of transformation everywhere, is that is a possibility. It's possible that you're going to have a relationship breakdown, but it's also possible that you won't. So the choice is really yours. And anytime I've ever gone to psychics or had my readings done, I always take it with a grain of salt, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, this is a choice break. Like, I can either go left or right or stand still.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right, we only have a minute left, and I love, we could talk about this forever, but there's an opportunity to see you and your mentor live.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that real fast.
In just a few weeks. So there is a unique planetary alignment happening this year and into 2021 that is so important. It's actually only happened twice in the past 2,000 years. And it is so important and so powerful that it's, if you don't use it, if you're unconscious of it, it can be experienced as a heavy period of your life. But there's so much breakthrough opportunity to take advantage of the energy behind that if you use it intentionally and create an amazing result, massive results in your life. This is really a rare window of opportunity, the way that I see it, the way that my teacher sees it, to truly find that big mountain that you never thought you could climb and prepare for it and intentionally go and climb it. So I'm calling that workshop Creating Your Destiny with the Stars in 2020, and it's on January the 30th. And my teacher, Stephen Forrest, is going to be making a guest appearance, and he's amazing. He's such a fantastic storyteller. And that is taking place in Borrego Springs, which is close to San Diego, but you can also attend online.
Borrego.
I've also offered Keelin's listeners 40% off of the price of the workshop, and that link will be available to you from her.
Great. Up until the date of the release, which is January 30th, 2020, just in case anyone's listening to this after that date. Lisa, thank you so much for your time. I love you so much, and I can't wait to have you back on the show so we can even dig in a little deeper to the world of possibility through astrology.
Love it. Thank you so much. I love you so much, Keelin. Thank you for having me on the show.
For now. Bye.